how we collect them and where they go. And Director Curso is here to enlighten us.
Enlightening, how about that, for taxes? So first I want to start off, well, good evening. First I want to start off with a disclaimer. So as most accountants would always tell you, or accountants not practicing in the world of tax, this is not tax advice. So this is something to consider. So if you have any questions pertaining to yourself, please ask your tax advisor. This is from the perspective of the city, so some accounting humor to start off. So a lot of information in here. I did quote a lot of DOR and IRS stuff in here, so probably be looking down quite a bit as amongst with a lot of the numbers. So, this is kind of what we see with the budget, the types of taxes we collect. Biggest category is sales and use tax. We tend to group those together. Property tax, real and personal property, and then gross receipts and franchise taxes. Those are the wireless cable phone, things like that. So this is kind of what the whole picture looks like. Basically, our tax revenue covers 47% of all revenues brought into the city. That's great, but what about the other parts? So this gives you an idea of why taxes are levied. Again, largest sales tax. So the sales tax rate in Gladstone is 8.475. The city collects 3% of that 8.475%. So the rest of it goes to the state, the county, and the zoo. Out of that, 1.5 cents goes to the general fund, the normal 1% that we had, and then the additional 0.5 cents we passed in 2019. CIST and TST, Capital Improvement Sales Tax Fund, and Transportation Sales Tax Fund both get 0.5 cents, and the Community Center Fund and Public Safety Sales Tax both get 0.25% sales tax, or 1/4 cent sales tax. All right, so here's where we get into the complicated, difficult stuff with the use tax. So I am going to read a lot of DOR stuff on here. So use tax was, for Missouri, was instituted in 1959. It's imposed on the storage or use or consumption of tangible personal property in the state of Missouri. Unlike sales tax, which requires a sale at a retail store in Missouri, use tax is imposed directly upon the person that stores, uses, or consumes tangible property. So one of the things that I always like to ask is, has anybody filled out a Form 53C? Probably not. So I'm not saying that I have never done it, but nor am I saying that I have done it. And I'll tell you, basically, that's a use tax return. So use tax is actually self-reported. If you purchase $2,000 worth of goods that you received that you did not pay sales tax on, you should have self-reported that to the state of Missouri. So not so much now. It's not as big of a deal as some of the online retailers are charging sales and use tax. But remember 3 years ago when we used to say, I'm going to buy this online because I get an automatic 8 to 10% discount because of sales tax? That's what happened. It's called the Wayfair Act 2018. Basically what that did, South Dakota versus Wayfair, it eliminated the requirement to have physical presence in the state to collect and remit that sales tax to the store. So basically, if we were buying something, I think an example I used earlier today was if we bought some Omaha steaks from Omaha, Nebraska, we may not get charged sales tax for that. However, they are responsible for, or actually technically we're responsible as a personally to claim that as use tax. So now everybody's doing it. There's a lot of software out there. God love my girlfriend, that's what she does for her company. She actually does the use tax, and I can't imagine a company that size having to report their use tax or how it's alerted that they didn't pay sales tax on that purchase. So that's something that they have to do. So why use tax? Again, this encourages a fair marketplace. Again, we used to go to online retailers. You could buy it for basically an 8 to 10% discount just because of it did not charge sales tax or use tax. So when use tax was put in place, that advantage no longer existed. So you could either go down the street at a retail store and probably buy it for the same price that you would without that sales tax discount. Also, if I remember right, a long time ago, there used to be a tax advantage for purchasing cars. You know, a lot of people from this area would go over state lines to purchase a vehicle because the tax burden would be less. I want to say that changed in the 80s or 90s, but I do know that changed. So now we pay sales tax in where we live. So that way we get to collect that money. We should collect that money. So additional stuff on the use tax. So if you make a purchase from an out-of-state seller and you did not pay Missouri use tax to the seller, or if you make a purchase from any seller that is not engaged in the business. So something to consider, again, disclaimer, 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 if you buy something on an online marketplace that didn't charge or collect sales tax, should you self-report that use tax? Not tax advice, just something to consider. You are not responsible for reporting use tax if you make the purchase in Missouri or the retailer and they remit the tax. So just kind of a list of things that are related to use tax. Again, a lot of these are, you know, businesses that are not within, I think the common term back in the day was state nexus. They didn't have bricks and mortar in the state of Missouri. Things like catalog purchases, magazine subscriptions, cross-border purchases of goods, TV marketing purchases, computer software or hardware, mail order supply, furniture equipment from out-of-state sellers, purchase of goods brought over the internet, or purchase of goods bought over the telephone. One of the things that we've heard a lot of in the news, and of course we did the property tax levy just a couple of weeks ago, is property tax. So this is kind of a chart of where we are on property tax. Our legal limit is .929 per $100 worth of assessed valuation. The 2023 levy, real is .692, commercial is .696. So you can see it's basically been rolled back a quarter, so 25%. Of course, that's due to Hancock. The city is only allowed to realize 5%, an increase of the lesser of 5% or CPI. Of course, this year it was CPI, or it was 5%. So every time those assessed valuations go over that, we have to roll back the levy, and we have to roll back the levy, and we have to roll back the levy. So now, instead of .929 for our houses, it would be .692. Personal property is at .929. Every year, this is something that I have to wait for the last second. I get the final numbers from the county, submit it to the state auditor, and then that's what we show on at our hearing. So the smallest of the group is the gross receipts or the franchise taxes. Basically, this is all kind of levied by the state and the city, of course, too. Electricity 7%, gas 7%, telephone 7%. Who still has a landline? So obviously that's kind of declined over the past few years. Same thing with cable service or video services or cable. Not a lot of people. A lot of people have been kind of dropping that and then going to streaming services. Streaming services are not taxed. Let me rephrase that. Most streaming services are not taxed. And then we have the hotel motel tax, which was something we passed a long time ago, but we did just recently get the hotel, so that is actually a new revenue stream for the city. So one of the most common questions I hear, especially as a finance guy for government, is why do we have to pay property tax every year? Why are we getting taxed on the same things over and over and over? Why do we have to pay sales tax on everything we buy? And this was kind of the comment I said on the streaming services. Google did actually do an agreement, I think it was about 6 months ago. They are remitting 1% for streaming services, which is better than most are letting us do. I always say that they're smarter than I am, so there's probably a reason why they did that. And I do know that they have looked at some sort of taxation for streaming services. So what taxes are used for? This is why we have property taxes every year. This is why we collect sales tax. IRS definition: taxes provide revenue for federal, local, and state governments to fund essential services, defense, highways, police, justice systems that benefit all citizens who could not provide such services efficiently for themselves. So again, we are providing police service, fire service, streets, parks, of course, most importantly to me, finance services, accounting services, things like that. So we do a lot of things that, the way I've always said it, general businesses would not be profitable doing. Generating water, things like that. So kind of an example I brought up, so this is just looking at the general fund revenue streams, operating revenue streams, and expenditures. So total operating revenues for the general funds, $22,444,445. Total expenditures, operating expenditures, $20,639,000. So out of that, $14,919,000 is raised from taxes. So that would basically pay for your police, fire, EMS, parks, recreation, and basically property and liability insurance for the city. So that would not provide for general administrative services, financial services, public works services, or community development services. So this is why taxes are important. The city does have a third-party auditor. We have an independent auditor that comes in every year. They audit taxes very heavily. Not only that, they are available online. So, if there are any questions about any of that, please let us know. It can be a little bit cumbersome going through that 130-page, what we call ACFR, but there usually are pretty good answers if you would like to know anything. Questions, comments? Sir.
Yeah, I was surprised seeing the slide on only 47% of the city revenue coming from taxes. I was surprised by that. I don't know what number I would have had in my head, but that came as a surprise to me. I also had a question on the use tax. It seems like a lot of the things you buy now from mail order charges your sales tax for you when you buy it.
Right.
How does that ultimately filter into our pockets here at Gladstone? If I buy something on Amazon and they charge me sales tax, at some point that money filters through what, the state, the county? It obviously doesn't come to us directly.
No, so we get a super secret file, and it is, 25,000 rows long, usually every month. And it basically shows every business that remits sales or use tax monthly. It's very difficult to read, and your comment is exactly the same as my thought in my head, because you do see it listed as sales tax. Mm-hmm. Was it sales tax or is it use tax? Which one should it be? For the most part, hopefully you guys don't take this bad, I don't care. It's 8.475%, whether it's sales tax or use tax for the city of Gladstone. So either way, it's should come to us. Now the 64118, 614119 discussion, that argument might go either way. Should we be collecting more? Should we be collecting less? It's hard to say, especially on the use tax side, because we can see the larger retailers that we have, the major retailers, but that's less than 1% of the lines on that spreadsheet. This thing is huge. So it is very difficult.
Does the money come into our coffers on a monthly basis,
yes,
or do we get it's on a monthly? Okay.
Yes, we do. And something that's important, and when I first started, I didn't realize this. When one of your large retailers misses the sales tax deadline, you may be 20%, 30% down. So don't panic if it happens for 1 month. If we're 1 month short, as long as it comes back twofold the next month, all is good. But if it continues to miss, that's when you start to have to worry, and that has happened. So we've had to make phone calls to DOR and say, hey, what's going on? So our financial systems analyst has put together a huge report. He's actually helped a lot of other cities with it, and it's a very, very good dashboard of what's going on, who's paid, who's not paying, who's late, and all that other stuff. It's pretty impressive, very impressive.
Do we get any part of the penalty if a business misses their sales tax deadline?
I'm going to say yes, but it does not come through exactly as penalty. So I don't see what's penalties, what's not penalties, or anything like that. It just shows me a number. And unfortunately, sometimes that number is negative. So they do claw back from time to time from businesses.
So Dominic, are some of these numbers, I remember when we had a conversation at MML, and there was a conversation about, oh wow, our use tax is really up. So can you explain why that is, or is that the case?
So it's funny, because after you mentioned something to me, there was actually a conversation on the listserv about, hey, what's going on with your stuff? And it was completely all over the board, whether some people's sales tax were up, use taxes were up, some people were down and down, some people were one up, one down. Again, a lot of it just has to do with timing. And, there's also a chance that maybe somebody's going through some issues with DOR and DOR's auditing them. I do know that Department of Revenue has audited several people, and it has benefited us. So when they go back and collect sales tax that somebody didn't collect or remit 10 years ago, all of a sudden we have a new name on our list.
But it doesn't come in, I'm still confused about sales and use. It doesn't come in, here's the pod for sales, here's the pod for use, or it does come in like that?
We get a deposit for each one. So let me go back. For each classification, so we actually get one deposit for the general fund 1%. Haven't really figured out why, but they actually send us a check for the 0.5% that we passed in 2019, and then we get a separate deposit for the CIST, TST. So we actually get 6 deposits. And unfortunately, just by looking at the bank, most of them are all direct deposited. I can't tell which one's which until we get the remittance forms from Department of Revenue, and we get one for use tax.
Said it before, I'm going to say it again. I'm glad you really like these numbers. Somebody needs to.
Yeah, it's a sickness, but it's fun. I do love looking into it, and yeah, I mean anything you guys have, any questions you may have, feel free to let me know. We'll look into it as much as we can.
Thank you so much.
I've got one more question.
Sure.
Of course.
Are you generally happy with the balance that we now have between the different revenue sources? I remember since I've been here a long time, we had kind of shifted. We weren't happy with where the bulk of our revenue was coming from, and we kind of shifted it so that it would be spread out. And we benefited because we did that. Are you happy with where we're at now for distribution of revenue sources?
The first thing I'll say is it has its advantages and disadvantages both. I think especially during COVID, that helped us immensely because we did not have that sharp downfall like everybody else did. I mean, if you were dependent on sales tax,
which we were at one point.
At one point, but after we did, it kind of evened itself out. I remember, I think when I first started, it was basically like 20%, 20%, 20% sales tax, 20% property tax, 20% gross receipts taxes, and then the balance. Like I said, during a down economy, that helps because we're not completely reliant on one stream. We always have something coming else in that we can rely on. Communities that may have been relying on sales tax and then people quit shopping, that may not have worked to their advantage because they don't know if they were just not buying, if they were buying from an online retailer that was not remitting them sales tax. And it's kind of weird to me is probably one of the biggest phone calls I get is, why are you charging me 10.5% sales tax? I'm like, well, where did you go? Because it probably wasn't in Gladstone. So I actually have that conversation more probably than anything else with taxes. And then, of course, why did you raise my property tax? And usually the response is, I haven't raised them yet. But
Thank you.
So I have one more.
Sure.
On the gross receipts,
Uh-huh.
I mean, that's a pretty big chunk, but it seems to me like when we hear from you and we look at the reports, gross receipts always seems to be, oh, this is down because not landlines or this and this, but looks like that's fairly significant. I mean, when you look at the pie chart and when you look at the numbers.
It can be. So the biggest problem with gross receipts taxes is the timing. A lot of times I will get a deposit on the 29th. So right now it's a timing issue right now. So we've been getting their remittance on like the 29th of that month instead of the 2nd. So since we do it on a cash basis on the monthly reports, there's always going to be a difference there until they get back to the same schedule. And honestly, that can be the same way with sales tax. So if one of our retailers misses the tax deadline, it may come the next month. Or they just maybe habitually, maybe they just habitually pay on the 10th instead of paying on the 5th to get the discount. It's not an easy game. Now, it does actually say it on the giant spreadsheet that we get, what the remittance month was or remittance period. But again, that's about a 25,000 row spreadsheet that is not easy to go through.
But this telephone breakout here, that's landline, that's not cell phone.
That's both.
It is both. Okay.
So this is the wireless portion of that, and that's kind of something that we've all discussed probably since the beginning of wireless phones. A lot of companies are actually going to a fee-based schedule, which is basically eliminating the gross receipts. So when we used to pay, $75 for your cell phone bill, it used to be $75 of usage. Now it's $50 of fees that are not taxable and $25 in gross receipts. Unfortunately, the way I always say it, they have more lawyers than we do. So that's what makes things like that tough.
It's really, really helpful, Dominic.
Yeah,
Thank you
very good.
so much.
Thank you.
You're welcome. If you guys have any other questions, please feel free to let me know.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Hey, next up is Director Nevergall to talk about the water service line inventory project that we approved, and he'll talk about the progress.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, City Council. I can be pretty brief on this. So, as you recall, a couple months ago, the City Council awarded a project to Lamprey Nearson to help us with a water service line inventory. And I had not been in front of you to kind of explain what that is and what's happening with that and what the city needs to do. So, real briefly, the water service line inventory project is the city needs to create an inventory of both the public side and the private side of everyone's water service in town. So there's 10,000 water services in Gladstone. The public side is from the public main to the meter, and then the private portion is from the meter to the house. Now this inventory, the hard part is the private side, partly because it's private. Those were installed with the homeowner. Some of them are original. And really where this comes from is it actually is a kind of an offshoot of what happened in Flint, Michigan. Now I am not saying that we are Flint, Michigan. But from that, Flint, Michigan, and this is not said very much publicly, they put out a corrosive water. That water deteriorated the service lines, and in Flint, Michigan, I guess the amount of lead was significant in the service lines. In Gladstone, number one, we don't put out a corrosive water. In fact, that was analyzed again as part of our recent water plant study to confirm that we have a very stable water. And two, I have not come across a lead service in Gladstone in my 16 years here, so I think the number is very small. So, but that's really the reason and how we got to where we got. So, essentially all water services, big and small, need to develop this inventory and have the bulk of it completed by October 2024. We have about 10,000 services. It's going to be a challenge for us. It's going to be a monumental task for cities like Kansas City that have, services that extend back 100 years. So, but for us, it's manageable. DNR is going to let us use kind of predictive modeling type techniques. So what I view that as being is we can look at a neighborhood and say, okay, to preserve at Carriage Hill is relatively new. It was constructed after 1989, which is essentially the date for lead services. So those can, we can kind of pull those off the top of the list and categorize those, and we can focus on specific neighborhoods. We do have a lot of data already. As you know, we did about $1.6 million worth of water main replacements last year, and we're doing another $1 million this year. Part of those projects was to identify what these service line materials are. And what we're finding is the Gladstone portion of it, the public side, we found nothing but copper. We have found some galvanized on the private side, but no lead. Now, the only kind of unknown to that is without additional data of what I would say the downstream side. So if there was ever lead or a lead service upstream of a copper line, then you have to this is the confusing part. If there was ever a galvanized line upstream or downstream of lead, then you have to classify the galvanized as lead because it collects those lead particles over time. We've also done some initial investigation of that too, and I have yet to find any, or we have yet to find any lead pigtails, connections, that type of thing. So I think we're going to be okay as far as that goes too, but that's really the largest unknown for us. And in our sampling, I mean, it could be as much as 10% in some of our older neighborhoods, and of course that's where we're replacing our water lines. But in our newer neighborhoods, it's going to be zero. So, but that's really what we're trying to undertake. Where I wanted to get in front of you tonight, though, and talk a little bit about this is on the private side. Water systems are reaching out to their citizens and asking them for help. We plan to do the same. So there's going to be an article in this fall magazine about, hey, can you help the city and tell us what your service is coming into your house? So there's some pictures, and it shows you what a copper service looks like versus a lead service versus a galvanized service. I don't expect to get a huge number of responses to that, but anything we do get is helpful in completing the inventory. And then last but not least, we are actually going to, and you'll see a contract come before you here probably in the next month or two for potholing. And what that is we'll actually go out and we'll pothole the services on the private side. And I anticipate if we find a galvanized line, we'll actually then pothole a second location at the main, verify that it's not lead, and then it's not a galvanized line that requires replacement. Another unknown with this is just kind of how much is DNR and EPA going to require of cities to replace these lines. Right now it's kind of up in the air because you've got a lot of pushback from the water systems about like how large an undertaking this is and the cost. So you figure if we had 10,000 services and 10% of them were galvanized, and the city had to undertake that endeavor at $5,000 a pop, that's $5 million in today's dollars. So those conversations are still being had, but I just think there's not a lot of lead out there, but we still got to go through the process, and so I just wanted to let you know. So again, there will be an article in the fall magazine, so if you get questions, just wanted to make sure you were aware of the process. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
So Tim, once the inventory is done, and then you have to present that to DNR or to EPA or to whom?
So you submit it to DNR, and then we also have to make it available publicly. So I envision it being similar to like a consumer confidence report. Every year, whether people know it or not, we have to publish a consumer confidence report on our city's website. That is our chemical makeup of our water, if we've had any violations, which I can't tell you the last time we had a violation, but basically all those parameters, and those are posted on the city's website. I envision this being posted right next to that, and then as we update it, we'll just update it annually and kind of take it from there. But that's how that process is going to work.
So if you do find lead on the private side, then that's just a finding, or is someone mandated to do something about that?
You're required to do a notification. And so, like, if we do find lead, that property owner will be notified that a lead service was identified, and the property owner will be notified. And from there, how that's handled is kind of the unknown at this point. But as of right now, it would just be a notification to the property owner.
Big undertaking. Questions, comments for Tim? Thank you very much. Is everybody ready to start?
I'm ready, I'm sorry.
We'll call to order the Monday, October 9th meeting of the Gladstone City Council and welcome all of you who are with us tonight. Madam Clerk, please note that all council members are here except for Mayor Pro Tem Spallo, who had to be away for tonight. I would ask you to rise and join in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item number 4 is approval of the agenda. Is there anyone on the council who wishes to make a change in the agenda for this evening? Seeing none, we'll go to item number 5, which is the approval of the September 25th, 2023 closed City Council meeting minutes.
Mayor Moore.
Councilman Malum.
I move to approve the minutes from the September 25th, 2023 closed City Council meeting.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of the closed City Council meeting of September 25, 2023. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The minutes are approved. Item number 6 is approval of the September 25th, 2023 regular City Council meeting minutes.
Mayor Moore.
Councilman Malum.
I move to approve the minutes from the September 25th, 2023 regular City Council meeting.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of the regular City Council meeting of September 25, 2023. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The minutes are approved. Item number 7, communications from the audience. This is the time during every council meeting that we invite members of the audience to bring before the council any item that is not listed on the agenda. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to come before the council this evening? Seeing none, we'll move to communications from City Council. Councilman Smith.
I have nothing, thank you.
Councilman Malum.
Thank you, Mayor. We have a flyer here that is a breakfast being sponsored by the Elks, and it's in support of Shopping with the Cop. It's a program that Art Hammond, a former mayor and city council member, has put together over the past few years. But at the Elks Lodge on Saturday, October 21st, 7:30 to 11:30, the best breakfast in Gladstone will be Saturday, October 21st. The funds from this breakfast will go to support Chief Ferris, and the police actually will be working with families from the elementary schools that feed into Gladstone. I believe in December then, police officers will meet with family members at Walmart. Clothing items for the winter months and toys possibly could be purchased for those identified families. So I sure hope to see you at the Elks Lodge when? Saturday, October 21st, 7:30 to 11:30. The price is very reasonable and it goes to help a good cause. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman Malum. Councilman Garno.
Thank you. I just wanted to thank Director Nevergall and Director Murky. They had completed an access point to the trail at Happy Rock East down by the softball complex. And we had finally completed the concrete trail all the way around the park, but we didn't have access points for handicapped accessibility and bicycles. And we now do. I rode through there today. It's great. And there was an older gentleman pushing his wife in a wheelchair up that ramp. So it was nice to have that done and to not have it be part of a 3-year capital improvement plan. So thank you.
Right. Last Thursday evening, I had the opportunity to attend the Faith and Blue event right here outside on the steps of the new police department. This is a national event that brings together members of police departments in the faith community. So I want to thank Chief Ferris and the rest of the department who was there. and members of our faith community who were there to lead the event. So it was very nice event. Saturday was Glad Green Team that I had the opportunity to lead, and I want to thank the city manager for coming out and picking up trash. We were a small group, but we were mighty in our efforts, and we picked up trash from, we met at Mi Ranchito, and we went south to Inglewood Road and then came back north all the way to 64th Street. So we picked up a lot of trash, a lot of car parts. It seemed to be just flying off cars. But anyway, I know I'm a broken record about the Glad Green Team, but I really, really appreciate anyone's help. It's a fun event, 2 hours of your time, and I think we are making a difference in the beautification of the city. So thanks to everybody who has constantly participated in that event. And then I want to give a special shout out to Director Murky and all of his department for everyone's efforts for Whiskey Fest. It was another great success last Saturday evening, and this event just continues to grow, and I think really be a hallmark event for the city of Gladstone. So I think we're really proud of that. So kudos to him. Mr. City Manager, your turn.
Thank you, Mayor. We have a few things coming up. Actually, applications are open for the upcoming board and commission interviews. For residents interested in serving in one of the open advisory positions, you can apply online at the city's website, and the applications are being accepted through Monday, October 30th at 5 p.m. Fright Night is happening on Friday, October 20th at Happy Rock Park. For this event, kids 12 and under can trick-or-treat with local vendors and enjoy a hot dog and hot chocolate. That's from 6 to 7:30 p.m. And finally, Big Shoal Pumpkin Days, coming up Saturday, every Saturday actually, from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. while supplies last of the pumpkins. So make sure you come out to AJ Farming Museum and you can pick out your own pumpkin. And that is all. Thanks.
Thank you. We'll move to item number 10, which is the consent agenda. So, Madam Clerk, I hope you have your voice ready for this long consent agenda. Can you please read and explain the consent agenda?
A consent agenda allows the City Council to consider and approve routine items of business without discussion. Any member of the City Council, the city staff, or the public may request removal of any item from the consent agenda and request that it be considered under the regular agenda if discussion or debate of the item is desired. Items not removed from the consent agenda will stand approved upon motion by any council member, second unanimous vote to approve the consent agenda as published or modified. Consent agenda. Consider building permit, AT&T Communications Monopole Communications Tower and ground equipment located at 710A Northeast 76th Street. Resolution R-23-64, a resolution authorizing acceptance of work under contract with A.T. Switzer Painting Company, Incorporated, for the painting competition pool and dive well project, and authorizing final payment in the amount of $4,750 for project CC 2453. Resolution R-23-65, a resolution authorizing acceptance of work under contract with Insco Industries, Incorporated, for the Gladstone Municipal Pool Painting Project, and authorizing final payment in the amount of $4,967.50 for project CC 2353. Resolution R-23-66, a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a contract with Ever Ready Services, LLC, for holiday lighting in the total amount not to exceed $30,400 for 2023 and $28,400 per year for 2024 and 2025. Resolution R-23-67, a resolution authorizing acceptance of work under contract with Zerker Technologies, a Central Square Technologies company, for the purchase of computer-aided dispatching and records management software, and authorizing final payment in the amount of $42,444.20 for project SB 2081.
Thank you. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes an item be removed from the consent agenda for discussion? Anyone on the council? Staff?
No, Mayor.
I will entertain a motion.
Mayor Moore.
Councilman Smith.
Move that we approve the consent agenda as submitted.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda as presented. All in favor, aye. Any opposed? The consent agenda is approved. We'll move to the regular agenda to item number 11, which is Resolution R-23-68, a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a professional engineering services agreement with Walter P. Moore and Associates Incorporated in the total amount not to exceed $87,120 for the design of the Northeast 76th Terrace Storm Drainage and Parking Project, CP 2431.
Mayor Moore.
Councilman Garnos.
I move to adopt Resolution R-23-68.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to adopt Resolution R-23-68. Is there any discussion? All in favor of approving approving Resolution R-23-68, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution R-23-68 is approved. Item number 12 is other business. Is there other business to be brought before the council this evening? Seeing none, we will adjourn. Thank you.